I think that Fethullah Gulen, from what I have read of his works, has very interesting ideas. I particularly like his advocacy of a form of Islam that is compatible with the modern world, that is promoting peace, equality, and justice and freedom in the world. In schools, when I was in Turkey, I visited 2 boys' schools. I would have loved to see a girls' school as well. Hizmet charity activities when I was in Turkey, I was very impressed with how organized and how modern they were. My name is Levin. I'm a professor of Russian and East European history at the University of Kansas, and my area of specialization is actually the history of Christianity. I come from a Jewish family, and I grew up in upstate New York. I first learned about the Hizmet movement when I went to Turkey with a tour that was sponsored by the Dialogue Institute of the Southwest. And as part of this tour, we met people who were connected with the Hizmet movement. I first encountered the Hizmet movement under that name when I was in Turkey, and I was very much impressed with the kind of work the Hizmet movement was doing, how it brought ordinary people into helping other people who had needs, whether those needs were for material things or for guidance. I was particularly impressed with the after-school tutoring program that we saw and how that helped students who were going to public schools who were struggling. I think that the Hizmet movement represents what is best in Islam, the most peaceful, the most helpful, the most socially progressive aspects of Islam. I think that its advocacy of peace and justice through peaceful means is a very important aspect of Islam. And of course, the Hizmet movement does so much good for individuals who are in need at different times, particularly in Turkey, but also around the world. I think that the Hizmet movement is very much like some of the best movements that come out of other religious and cultural traditions. So I know that there are both Christian and Jewish groups that are advocating for education and for social welfare, and also groups that are not connected with any religious movement, but share the same philosophy, that all of us are responsible for everyone else in the world at some level. I think that Fethullah Gulen, from what I have read of his works, has very interesting ideas. I particularly like his advocacy of a form of Islam that is compatible with the modern world, that is promoting peace, equality, and justice and freedom in the world. And I think that that's a voice that many Americans have not heard out of the Islamic movement, even though Fethullah Gulen and others like him have been saying it for a long time. I would like to say that there are many of them, but what I would focus on would be his educational activities. I first heard about Fethullah Gulen when one of my graduate students was writing a dissertation on education in Turkmenistan. And during the bad years of the 1990s, when there was very little in the way of public education, the Gülen schools actually were providing the most important education for Turkmen young people. This I learned from my student, and that was how I heard first of Fethullah Gulen. I've been very involved in the Dialogue Institute of the Southwest ever since I was recruited to participate in it. In Lawrence, Kansas, where I live now, it's rather difficult sometimes to recruit somebody to speak from the Jewish community, and therefore, when nobody else can be found, I've been asked very often to come and speak. I'll actually be speaking at a program on Sunday. And I enjoy doing this because the groups that gather with the Hizmet, the dialogue movement, are really so affirming, so welcoming. And this includes Muslims and Christians and Jews and people who do not affiliate with a religious tradition but are concerned about religion and religious views, who come together and share ideas in a friendly and supportive setting. We visited Hizmet schools when I was in Turkey. We visited 2 boys' schools. I would have loved to see a girls' school as well, just to see how it was the same or different, and the after-school tutoring program. And I know that there are these schools exist in other countries where educational opportunities are very limited. I think that education is the way to help individuals and whole communities to prosper. So I'm very much in favor of education. From what I saw of Hizmet charity activities when I was in Turkey, I was very impressed with how organized and how modern they were. But even more, I was interested to hear how a Hizmet-related charity helped in the United States when there was Superstorm Sandy on the East Coast and there was devastation. We Americans often think about how we help other countries. And I think it's very good for us to receive help from other countries because it's the mutuality of aid that really builds the bridges. I know that movements are always going to be controversial because they're in every place. Different groups have different supporters who also have other interests, whether they're political or economic, sometimes even religious. And they're going to cause a certain amount of controversy. But I think that good deeds that are helping other people should generally be accepted for what they are. They're giving help. And the criticisms, if there are going to be criticisms, should be reserved for those kinds of activities that engage in the public or the economic realm. I don't think we want to discourage people from helping other people. I saw a lot of people, in fact, many of the people who we met were involved in the Hizmet movement. I don't know that receiving groups of Americans was part of the Hizmet movement specifically, but I know that the people who welcomed us also talked about their involvement in the Hizmet movement. In terms of an anecdote, you asked me to tell a story about when I was in Turkey. I think the story I've told most often involves our visit to Izmir. We had just gotten onto our van, and the local guide was taking us to the ancient city of Ephesus, which was remarkable for me because my father is a specialist in classical civilizations. But as we drove down the street, the guide pointed out that at one time, the street we were on had been a Jewish neighborhood. And this was very interesting to me personally. And the guide said that there was a synagogue that was on this street that was operating still, and immediately our guide got on the telephone and called to his contacts in Izmir, and they called their contacts, and by the end of the day, we had an invitation to visit the synagogue the next morning. So what that told me was not only there was an interest in continuing the interfaith dialogue that was part of our tour, but also that the people who were sponsoring our tour were very well tied in to the multi-ethnic and multi-religious communities, and therefore were able to arrange these sorts of friendly visits for us without any trouble, even at the last minute. So I have to say that what I saw was a very genuine acceptance of me as a person who was Jewish. And I also saw that when we were in Manisa and we saw a demonstration of Sufi dancing that was really impressive, and then we were asked to say things, I spoke about how in the modern world, Muslims and Jews are often characterized as enemies, but how, in fact, we could be friends, and we were friends, particularly at that moment. And that was, for me, an experience to find acceptance, welcoming, people who said to me, "Thank you for saying that. Yes, of course we're friends." I would say continue with the good deeds that the movement is doing now, sponsoring education, sponsoring relief for people in disasters or in economic difficulties. Continue to sponsor interfaith dialogue and to present a positive image of Islam as a modern faith that is comfortable in a multi-ethnic and multi-religious world.
We have our own interfaith work from the mosque, but it's not quite as advanced as Hizmet Movement, and the mosque is a platform for anyone. So we let Hizmet Movement move forward with their agenda, which we believe it is very effective in our community, portrayed Islam and Muslims in a positive way.
The Hizmet Movement gives us a whole different perspective of what Islam is really about. It's about establishing peace in God's world. Salam.